Imagine a weapon born in the desperate laboratories of World War II, dismissed by some as science fiction, feared by others as genius gone too far. 8 decades later, scientists quietly admit the physics still checks out. The materials still exist. In the right hands, it could still work. This isn't a tale of fantasy. It's a reminder that the line between past and present is thinner than we think. World War II changed everything. Not just geopolitics, but science itself. Out of fear and necessity, nations pushed technology beyond known limits. Many designs failed spectacularly, but a few concepts proved so advanced that even modern researchers raise their eyebrows at their continued feasibility. In the 1940s, science moved at wartime speed. Laboratories hummed day and night. Scientists slept beside their benches, and governments poured resources into experiments they barely understood. The pressure to innovate faster than the enemy led to extraordinary breakthroughs, and frightening ones. Every weapon conceived in that era was born of desperation. The men and women behind them weren't always villains. Many saw their work as the only path to survival. The paradox of World War II innovation is that brilliance and brutality shared the same workspace. When historians or scientists say a World War II weapon could still work today, they don't mean it's practical or moral, only that its fundamental science remains sound. The blueprints are simple, the physics unchanged, and that's what makes this story so chilling. Germany's engineers created one of the war's boldest ideas, a pilotless aircraft guided toward distant targets, the ancestor of the modern cruise missile. Its gyroscopes were crude, its guidance imperfect, but the vision was decades ahead of its time. Strip away the old wiring and replace it with modern electronics, and the same idea flies flawlessly today. Back then, a weapon that flew itself redefined the very nature of warfare. No pilot, no risk to one's own soldiers. Just automation and distance. That principle shaped not only missile technology, but the moral questions we still ask about drones and autonomy. During World War II, scientists toyed with sound as a weapon. Massive loudspeakers designed to project disorienting, low-frequency waves. The theory was seductive. Shake the human body with resonance and disable an army without firing a bullet. In practice, it barely worked. But the physics, pressure, frequency, resonance remain real. Modern research into acoustic control proves those same principles, only with better tools. Today, acoustic energy is used not to harm, but to heal. In ultrasound therapy, crowd control devices, and sound-based cleaning systems. The weaponized version never vanished from discussion, though treaties and ethics have buried it deep under regulation. Perhaps the darkest frontier of World War II science was biological warfare. Nations experimented with bacteria, viruses, and toxins, grotesque attempts to turn nature's smallest killers into strategic tools. Even today, the biology behind those efforts remains valid, though now it's studied for defense and medicine rather than destruction. The tragedy of those experiments lies not only in their cruelty, but in their scientific sophistication. Some of the same researchers who once designed pathogens later pioneered vaccines and antibiotics. It's a haunting reminder. Science itself is neutral. Morality is what shapes its direction. While much of the world focused on explosives, others studied fire. The physics of creating unstoppable urban infernos, manipulating airflow, fuel composition, and ignition timing was perfected during the war. Those techniques horrifying in their purpose. remain physically effective even now. Modern building codes and firefighting technology exist precisely because those World War II-era firestorms taught humanity the true scale of destruction that heat and wind can unleash. The weapon works, but it's one we never wish to see again. By the war's end, researchers noticed that large bursts of energy could fry electronics. Radios went silent, circuits burned out. They didn't have the tools to exploit it then, but they recorded everything. Decades later, those notes evolved into what we now understand as electromagnetic pulse theory. An EMP weapon doesn't rely on chemistry or explosives. It relies on physics. One pulse, one burst, and electrical systems collapse. The concept remains feasible today, which is why governments work tirelessly to shield their infrastructure against it. WW2 engineers dreamed of unmanned vehicles, boats, gliders, and bombs steered by radio. The technology was primitive, often unreliable, but the concept was revolutionary. If they'd had microchips and stable radio frequencies, they would have achieved what modern drones accomplish daily. Every drone buzzing in the sky today carries the DNA of those 1940s prototypes. The old idea works because the physics of remote control never changed. Only the precision improved. What began as a crude wartime experiment is now a billion-dollar civilian industry. Chemical weapons haunted every army. Scientists blended compounds with precision, searching for agents that could paralyze or kill invisibly. The formulas, though banned, remain scientifically valid. What changed is not chemistry, but conscience. Humanity drew a moral boundary, one that science alone could never enforce. From the ashes of those experiments came international treaties, forensic science, and chemical detection systems. Ironically, by trying to create destruction, humanity learned how to prevent it. When we realize these old ideas could still function, it's not admiration we should feel. It's unease, because it proves that scientific progress doesn't always move linearly forward. Sometimes the past is still sitting quietly, waiting for rediscovery. In the 1940s, material shortages crippled many brilliant designs. Metals cracked, electronics overheated, and fuels failed. Today's materials, carbon composites, microprocessors, advanced polymers, would fix all of that instantly, which means many failed World War II designs would no longer fail today. But progress carries cost. The more efficient our technology, the easier destruction becomes. It's one reason so many wartime inventions are deliberately locked away. Classified not because they're complex, but because they're too simple. The unsettling truth is that capability always outpaces morality. The same formulas that could destroy can also protect. Whether a World War II idea still works is less about machinery and more about human restraint. Many scientists of that era lived with deep regret. Some turned their knowledge toward peaceful applications. Others vanished into secrecy. Their diaries revealed a moral conflict. "We built what we were told to build," one engineer wrote, "but we forgot to ask why." To understand these weapons, we must listen to those who lived through them, the civilians, the soldiers, the rescuers. For them, these were not scientific curiosities, but lived nightmares. The human cost gives context to every blueprint that still works. Today, international treaties, digital surveillance, and global cooperation make it nearly impossible for such weapons to re-emerge undetected. Science may have advanced, but so have the mechanisms that restrain it. Every scientific breakthrough carries two faces, one of progress, one of peril. The same chemistry that fuels medicine can craft toxins. The same physics that launch satellites can guide warheads. Understanding that duality is the first step toward control. History warns that curiosity without boundaries is dangerous. The World War II scientists prove how rapidly human intellect can create, and how slowly human ethics can catch up. We still chase knowledge with the same hunger. The challenge is ensuring our conscience keeps pace. It's uncomfortable, but true. War accelerated modern science. Jet engines, antibiotics, radar, rocketry, all born from necessity and fear. Among those innovations lurked weapons whose potential hasn't dimmed with age. Their continued plausibility is the shadow side of our own brilliance. Modern scientists revisit these old concepts not to revive them, but to understand them, to analyze what made them effective, and to prevent similar ideas from resurfacing unchecked. Studying the past is an act of defense. Ask any military physicist or historian, and they'll tell you some World War II-era technologies could absolutely function now with minimal changes. But every one of them emphasizes the same conclusion. Working isn't the same as wise. So perhaps the better question isn't, could it still work, but should it? Science can resurrect almost anything, but morality decides what stays buried. That question, not the weapon, is what defines progress. The scientists of that era left us two legacies: the knowledge of what's possible and the warning of what happens when we ignore the consequences. Their notebooks whisper across time, "We proved it could be done. You must decide if it should be." As we stand in an age of drones, AI warfare, and digital weapons, the echoes of World War II feel eerily familiar. The tools have changed, the temptation remains. Understanding the past is not nostalgia, it's prevention. The World War II weapon scientists say could still work today is not just a piece of machinery, it's a mirror. It reflects what we're capable of and what we must choose not to do. History's most haunting inventions remind us that human progress is measured not by what we can create, but by what we choose to leave behind. Buried deep in national archives are sealed folders labeled classified obsolete technologies. But many historians quietly note that obsolete is a political word, not a scientific one. Inside those folders lie blueprints whose physics still hold true, ideas simply waiting for rediscovery. Every few decades, an old concept reemerges under a new name. What was once a guided bomb becomes a smart munition. A sonic disabler becomes non-lethal crowd control. The shell changes, the core remains. History doesn't repeat exactly, it upgrades itself. Some World War II research never truly ended. Certain programs were quietly absorbed into Cold War initiatives, disguised under civilian research grants. Rocket technology, biological containment, and cybernetic control systems all trace hidden lines back to those wartime labs. Not all of them spoke publicly. Some researchers vanished after the war, employed by other nations under secret programs. Their inventions evolved in shadows, often decades ahead of their time. Their silence tells its own story, that knowledge, once born, can't easily be buried. Captured research didn't die with surrender. Operation Paperclip, for instance, moved dozens of German scientists into American programs. Similar efforts occurred in the Soviet Union. What began in conflict became the foundation of space travel, missile guidance, and modern defense. The legacy of World War II science is global. The rocket scientists who once designed weapons of terror became the architects of humanity's journey beyond Earth. The same equations that guided bombs now guide satellites. The same ambition that sought destruction helped us reach the stars. That duality defines our species, capable of both ruin and wonder. In today's defense laboratories, scientists face echoes of the same ethical dilemmas. They're asked to innovate faster, smarter, and quieter. Some see themselves as protectors. Others fear they're repeating the mistakes of the 1940s, just with sleeker tools and digital screens instead of drafting tables. World War II had code breakers and analog computers. Today, we have artificial intelligence deciding targets and strategies. The concept of automation born during the war has now evolved into autonomous warfare. The same reasoning that guided pilotless missiles could one day guide pilotless decision-making. When we look at AI-guided systems, directed energy weapons, or hypersonic missiles, we're not inventing something new. We're perfecting what World War II scientists imagined but couldn't yet achieve. The skeleton of the past supports the flesh of the present. Every bomb crater, every ruined city from that war, carries an unspoken message. The greatest danger isn't the weapon itself. It's the moment humanity believes it can control consequences. That illusion was shattered repeatedly in the 1940s, but the temptation to believe it again is eternal. Nations often prefer selective memory. We celebrate the technologies that healed, penicillin, radar, jet travel, but quietly bury the ones that horrify. Yet forgetting is risky. Ignorance invites repetition. Studying these old weapons isn't glorification. It's inoculation against history repeating itself. Irony, our world today, dependent on power grids, electronics, and networks, is more vulnerable to certain World War II-era ideas than the 1940s ever were. A single, well-placed electromagnetic burst, a cyber-triggered chain reaction, could cripple societies built entirely on digital infrastructure. The most dangerous weapon to emerge from World War II's legacy isn't chemical or nuclear. It's informational. The manipulation of truth, propaganda, and data was refined during that war. Today, misinformation is weaponized faster than any missile. Ideas, once again, have become arms. Science can calculate force, trajectory, or blast radius, but it can't calculate morality. That's still left to us. Every discovery carries an equation. One side knowledge, the other conscience. If either term goes missing, the result is disaster. The World War II weapon that could still work today is not merely a machine. It's the mindset that created it. The belief that survival justifies everything, that intelligence outranks empathy, that progress has no pause button. The blueprints may sleep in archives, but their warning is wide awake. The question isn't whether the weapon still works. It's whether we've learned enough to stop it from working again. In remote storage rooms and decaying basements of old research institutes, yellowed papers lie untouched, sketches of concepts that could still function with a modern twist. Many were too costly, too dangerous, or too misunderstood for their time. Yet when modern engineers rediscover them, they see not impossibility, but unfinished potential. What happens when an 80-year-old idea meets 21st century tools? Suddenly, the impossible becomes trivial. Computers simulate what human intuition once guessed. Materials once unavailable can now withstand pressures and temperatures undreamed of in 1944. It's not the old weapon that changes. It's the hands that wield it. There's a quiet thrill in resurrecting old designs. For scientists, it feels like time travel, correcting the mistakes of their predecessors, proving that the forgotten genius was right. But every rediscovery carries a hidden risk. Fascination can blur into obsession, and old dangers can be disguised as progress. History shows a troubling pattern. Every generation rediscovers an old concept, perfects it, and then faces the same moral crossroads. The same happens today with drones, AI, and bioengineering. Technology repeats its rhythm, faster, smarter, but rarely wiser. Many veterans who witnessed the power of those weapons spoke rarely about it, yet their silence was deafening. They knew that once humanity learns to destroy efficiently, it never truly forgets. Their generation carried that burden, so we wouldn't have to. But are we listening? Curiosity drives progress, but it also drives peril. The same instinct that cured diseases also created them. The same logic that powered factories powered bombs. Every invention is a coin with two sides. And World War II was when humanity first realized how heavy that coin could be. Every time we develop new defense technology, we are staring into a mirror reflecting the 1940s. The same urgency, the same secrecy, the same belief that innovation ensures safety. Yet the lesson of World War II is that safety built on superiority never lasts. True safety comes from restraint. Knowledge cannot be destroyed. Even if every document burned, the principles would live on in textbooks, in memory, in curiosity. That's why the question of could it still work is almost irrelevant, because the knowledge always can. What matters is how we choose to use it. The World War II weapon scientists say could still work today is more than metal and mathematics. It is a warning carved into history itself that intellect without empathy breeds extinction, and that the past never truly dies. It waits to be remembered. The real test of progress is not whether old weapons can still work, but whether humanity finally can.